Hello, and welcome back to Tima podcast for another regular Premier League overview. I will be looking at the most interesting details and highlights from the weekend action, and of course, having my own interesting take on it, focusing on fan perspectives from what the fans really think. And as always, there are highlights available so you don't have to watch the entire episode like with some other podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, simply go to the description. You will see timestamps. You can press on the timestamp and you can instantly jump to the section you want to listen. And of course, you can equally scroll through and you should see on YouTube. If you're watching on podcast platforms, head over to the description as well. You should see the timestamps there and you can kind of scroll over to the bit where you want to watch. Of course, the different sections here, and we'll be focusing on several key games and key highlights, several dynamics. So let's get right into it. The first thing I want to talk about is Arsenal 1, Fulham 1 at Craven Cottage. Now, this is a big game. This is really big because Liverpool's game against Everton was cancelled, as in postponed because of the Storm Dara. Obviously, I wish everyone all the best. Hope everyone's doing alright in these stormy times in the United Kingdom. But Arsenal had a brilliant opportunity to move only 4 points away from Liverpool had they beaten Fulham, and that would put them in a good position to pressure Liverpool. But Arsenal kind of bottled it. I mean, I don't like to use the word bottled it unnecessarily, but this is a brilliant opportunity. And once again, Arsenal stumbling at Craven Cottage. It cost them the league arguably last season when they lost at Craven Cottage. This time they get a draw. Raul Jimenez scoring on the 11th minute has really damaged Arsenal's title hopes. They're now 7 points adrift from Liverpool, and Liverpool have a game in hand. 6 points. 6 points adrift, and Liverpool have a game in hand. So Fulham only had 2 shots on target the entire game. Arsenal had 6 times more shots, 12 shots in total versus 2 for Fulham. Arsenal also had 67% possession. So they had the possession, they had the chances, they had a goal overruled by the VAR, Saka's header, because Martinelli was in an offside position. Harsh, but that's how football works. If you're offside, you're offside. There's nothing you can do about it. This is how the system works. So probably not very reasonable by Martinelli the way he strayed into offside. So some chances wasted. Thomas Partey with a chance as well. Didn't use those chances, and Fulham were clinical. Well done, Raul Jimenez. He's really doing brilliantly this season, scoring goals, being a clinical poacher in the box. Haven't got that many in the Premier League anymore like him. This kind of clinical poacher, striker who just scores goals brilliantly. I think he's a rare commodity, I think. Very good player. But you know what? To discuss this game, I actually want to go back a bit. And you might think this is irrelevant, but it's not. Let's go back to the Arsenal-Liverpool game, which ended 2-2 at the Emirates. Because that game is actually so important to understand the mentality required to win a league title. You've got to be relentless, brilliant, brutal. You've got to win stuff. Arsenal, first half in that game, they scored 2 goals. They were up 2-1, 52% possession. More than double Liverpool's expected goals. So they were dominating. They were doing well. We were terrible. We were really bad. We were wasting the ball and they were dominating. Second half, Gabriel comes off injured. And what do Arsenal do? In the second half, at home, the Emirates is bouncing. They're passing us in the league. Surely you think they're going to be up for it? No. Arsenal decided to sit back, defend, 37% possession, only 1 shot on target the entire second half. Raya then gets booked for time wasting on the 66th minute. Martinelli runs the corner flag with 30 minutes to go. And not surprisingly, Liverpool dominated. And Salah equalizes on the 81st minute. The game ends 2-2. So essentially Arsenal, from a very strong position at half-time, end up drawing the game. And of course, context being injuries, Timber went off injured, Gabriel went off injured. It seems like Arsenal were making full use of these injuries, both Timber and Gabriel going down twice and having to kind of get back up and then come off again. So Arsenal wasting time, running to the corner flag. Is this really the mentality of Premier League winners? You're at home. You're against your rivals. You're beating them. You're winning. You're doing well. Why would you want to sit back and defend and start wasting time? Because ultimately that will, first of all, undermine the crowd spirit. No team, no home fan, no home team Arsenal fans, they don't want to watch you time wasting and falling over, pretending to be injured and then being injured and wasting time running for the corner flag. being defensive. Like, you need to be up for it. Arsenal need to show a bit of more of that winner's mentality. You need to want to win it. Last year, they went to the Etihad and look, Arteta was pragmatic. He parked the bus and they got a draw. But who won the league? That's right, City. And do you know how many points Arsenal lacked to beat City? 2 points. Well, there are 2 points. You've got to be clinical, brilliant, brutal. You can't just be time wasting in the second half to rivals at home. And that's what I mean about today's game against Fulham. This all ties back to mentality. I said at the beginning of the season that Arsenal will finish third and they will not win the league. And I said that because they don't have the mentality. They don't have a winner's mentality. Their team doesn't really have many winners. Sure, they've got players who won trophies with other teams like Sterling, Jesus, Havertz, Jorginho, but the only player who has actually won something with Arsenal is technically Saka. He was in the squad, I believe, for the FA Cup final in 2020, but he didn't even play that game. So essentially, Arsenal have no winners in that team with Arsenal. And the manager's only won one FA Cup. So where is that winner's mentality coming from? Because winner's mentality is Liverpool and City. 2 teams going at it, 90 plus points, fighting, never giving up. That's the mentality. You know, that season 21-22, we were like 14 points behind City and we kept fighting the entire second half of the season. We go to the Emirates, we go to the Etihad, get 2-2 draw, keep fighting, Mane with an equaliser. That's called the mentality for fighting for the league title. Even though we missed out by 1 point, that's the mentality you need. And Arsenal seem to be lacking it. Although Odegaard is a good captain, he's a great player, but Arsenal are lacking that mentality. The dark arts, relying so much just on scoring even the corners. I feel like you need to be a bit more of warriors sometimes. You can't be relying on time wasting and dark arts and being defensive. That's not really going to win you the league. So I think that's probably Arsenal's biggest problem, as well as having, of course, not having the squad depth and squad talent as City and Liverpool. They haven't got the same number of world-class players. But for me, it's also a mentality problem. But speaking of mentality, Man City keep on bottling it. Crystal Palace 2, City 2 at Selhurst Park. City, again, look, it's really bad for City. They're now dropping further and further down the table. They are now 8 points behind Liverpool and Liverpool have a game in hand. Look, it wasn't a great game at all for City. So City had 69% possession, but the reality is same number of shots, 12 for each side. I can't say City were by far the best team. Yes, they had chances, as had Palace. They just simply were unconvincing. They were simply unconvincing. One of the highlights being Rico Lewis picking up the first yellow for shouting at the ref, scores a goal, and then gets a second yellow for tripping a player, which apparently wasn't a proper yellow. Some City fans were quite angry about it, and the City players were really frustrated. Pep Guardiola had a go at the ref at the end, and obviously Rico Lewis gets a second yellow red. And look, maybe the second yellow was a bit harsh, but equally, don't be foolish enough to pick up a first yellow for dissent. Okay, don't get a first yellow and there's no problem. And yeah, look, City they don't look up to it. They just don't look up to it. Of course, you can use the excuse that they've got injuries, but injuries can't explain their form. Injuries can't explain that because they still got a really, really good team. That City team facing Crystal Palace still had Haaland, De Bruyne, Nunes, Savinho, Silva, Gundogan, Gvardiol, Diaz, Kyle Walker. I mean, these are really, really, really high quality athletes. These are proper players. And you expect more from them. You expect way more from someone of De Bruyne's talent, for instance. And City just aren't delivering it. There's a mentality problem. They seem to have dropped off. I think they've hit this rough patch of form. They're shell shocked. They're stunned. They can't get back on track. They beat Forest, but maybe just Forest underperformed. But every time City come up against a team who properly fights them, they get absolutely done for it. And once again this time, I think 2-2 is bad for City. They're dropping further and further. And one interesting thing I want to talk about is, of course, I don't like using the term flop. I don't want to disrespect any players, but an unspoken flop of the summer transfer window being Savinho. A highly rated Brazilian winger attacker playing for City. They signed him from one of their kind of sister clubs, Troy, who are also owned by the same ownership. And let me just say this, right? Savinho, 19 appearances, 14 starts, 1,153 minutes, 0 goals, 5 assists. Now, of course, you could make the argument that he's more about creating chances than arguably scoring goals. His biggest asset is probably his creativity, but 0 goals? 0 goals. 0. I mean, you got to admit that that's not really good, is it? How can he be a decent signing? I mean, he's supposed to be this highly rated, talented young player. He's got 0 goals. I mean, when other players underperform or don't score enough goals, the media's all over them. The first year Nunez came in, oh my god, the amount of media scrutiny and hate he got was ridiculous. Then this time, Savinho, no goals, 0 goals, and 14 starts? Where is the media reaction? I don't see any videos saying Savinho the flop, Savinho this, Savinho that, and I'm not calling for that. But what I don't understand is this media, which for some reason tries to target certain players like Nunez. The commentators, the media, the radio channels, all of them seem to be going at it at Nunez. But then Savinho's apparently fine now, although he got 5 assists and 0 goals, which fundamentally is a problem. If you're an attacker, you need to score some goals. Sure, Bernardo Silva doesn't score many goals. Roberto Firmino didn't score many goals. Jesus is not meant to score many goals. But you need to score some goals, otherwise why are you an attacker? And 0 goals in a time when City need to score goals is quite problematic. And he's had the minutes, he's had the starts as well. He's been given more than enough time, but he simply can't be clinical, can't score those chances. So I think that's definitely I think that's something which I'm just surprised by, the lack of attention given to this. Now, of course, Liverpool haven't even kicked a ball and we're already in a better position. 2 of our key rivals, both Arsenal and City, dropping points. Simply brilliant. And dropping points against relatively mid teams, in the sense that, of course, respect Fulham, they're doing phenomenal in the league. But what I mean by that is, Fulham and Palace aren't supposed to be teams where they aren't supposed to be causing much trouble to City and Arsenal, given the fact that City and Arsenal were supposed to be the title. City and Arsenal were supposed to be battling out the title amongst themselves. But of course, now we are dominating, well, hopefully dominating. Of course, I'm being cautious because we are only 4 points clear of Chelsea. Chelsea 4, Spurs 3 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Look, I've got to be honest here, right? I was wrong about Chelsea, wasn't I? I predicted them 9th. I'll be honest, that was a ridiculous take. Absolutely ridiculous take by me. Maresca is cooking, fair enough. They're second place. They are 2 points clear of Arsenal, 4 points clear of City, 6 points clear of Forest and Villa. Yes, I seriously put West Ham above Chelsea. Don't ask me what I was thinking. I did put a video on my channel before, a podcast episode about Chelsea's transfer mess. And I still stand by my opinion that I do believe that Chelsea misused the 1.3 billion of however much they spent. I don't think they built a team good enough for that amount of money. They could have made better signings. They massively overspent on players. They gave these super long contracts which will make it difficult to sell players. The amortization costs will obviously start to kick in more and more, which should prevent them from spending more money in the future. And I think for the amount of money spent, they don't have a title-winning team. But undeniably, we are obviously match week 15. We've played 15 games and Chelsea are 4 points off the title. I know we've got a game in hand, so it could be 7 points, but nonetheless, Chelsea being above City, above Arsenal is something that I would have never envisaged, because Chelsea look like a mess. They keep on signing players, they keep on buying all these young talents. They let go of Conor Gallagher, who was one of their best players. They let go of Trevor Chalobah, who was one of their best players. Their keeper, Robert Sanchez, is a liability and makes mistakes. Even in the Spurs game, the first goal was completely on him. What on earth was he doing? Fair enough, Cucurella slips, but then Sanchez decides to go away from the ball, so the ball goes in the back of the net. That's a problem. Centre-backs are not world-class. I will not say that Colwill, Badiashile, Dizazi, Fofana, none of these are top-class centre-backs. Fair enough, Malo Gusto, Cucurella are turning out to be obviously very decent signings, but you've got a lot of injury issues. You've got Reece James, the whole situation around him. You've got all these fringe players who are sort of there, but they're not, like, for instance, Ben Chilwell, who is just no idea where he is. You've got 45-man squad, although 21 are actually playing. So And then you've got way too many attackers to the point where you've got 8 attackers for 3 positions. I think the midfield is rather unbalanced, too many defensive midfielders. But look, I was kind of wrong because the players who I thought were going to do poorly are doing very well. Enzo Fernandez, in his last 6 games, he's got 3 goals and 6 assists. 9 goals and assists in 6 games. And he scores a goal against Spurs. Sancho scores a goal. Cole Palmer with 2 penalties. Cole Palmer seems to be phenomenal. He's 3rd place in terms of total goal scores in the Premier League. So he's in the Golden Boot race. So I can't deny that clearly Chelsea got it right with Enzo Maresca. He seems to be a good manager with a good style of football. He's come in, he's managed a squad. He was ruthless with getting rid of Sterling and he brought in other players who have worked out. They have made up league position. They've surprised a lot of us. They have. And defensively, they seem pretty decent. They aren't conceding too many goals. I can't say they're brilliant defensively, but I mean, let's have a look. How many goals have they conceded? They've conceded 18 goals, which is not that bad. That's less than City, less than Brighton, less than Villa. So it's not bad at all. They're scoring a lot of goals as well. So 35 goals scored, plus 17 goal difference. It's looking very good for Chelsea on the footballing level. So I can't deny that I underestimated Enzo Maresca. I thought that, okay, fine, less than 2 years of experience in football. He kind of failed at Parma, went to Leicester, got promoted. So what? There's nothing special in that. But clearly Chelsea found the talent in him and he's been able to essentially develop his style of play in Chelsea with these players and they're doing well. Fair enough, fair play. I admit that I was wrong there. And then the last topic for today, the last big topic is United. What is going on? Ruben Amorim's new manager bounce. I mean, what is happening? United 2, Forest 3. This is a disaster, an absolute disaster for Manchester United as they lose the 2nd game in a row. Now they lost to Forest at home as well. The first half starts, concede a goal 2 minutes in. Second half starts, concede a goal 2 minutes in. What is going on? Seriously, what is going on? This team is just massively underperforming in every single sense of it. And, of course, people blame Ten Hag. Of course, people said Ten Hag's the problem and they said that he's the issue. I do remember a Sky Sports Saturday Social episode it was James Lawrence Olka and some other guy, and they basically were ranking the issues at Manchester United. And they made this video a couple months ago, and they both put Ten Hag as the biggest issue. And of course, the media piled on Ten Hag. Everyone was blaming Ten Hag, Ten Hag, Ten Hag. But sure, he's been sacked. Let's look at what Amorim's done since then. Well, he's come in, right, Amorim? He's lost 2 games. He beat Everton, which you expect. He barely beat Bodo Glimt. And they drew Ipswich Town, which is rather embarrassing. So maybe it's about time to realize that maybe it wasn't all Ten Hag. Maybe the media pile was unjustified. Maybe you've got to realize that when you've got a sequence of managers failing at one club, maybe it's not the managers. Because you've had David Moyes failed. He's the biggest problem? Yes, okay. Then, what was his name? Louis van Gaal comes in. Is he the biggest problem? Yes, okay, move him on. Then you got Jose Mourinho. Is he the biggest problem? Yeah, he's got to go as well. Okay. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer comes in. Biggest problem? Okay, fine. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer sacked. Ralf Rangnick, he got sacked as well. Erik ten Hag comes in. Of course, he's the biggest problem. He's terrible. He's awful. What on earth is he doing? Right. Now you've got Ruben Amorim and you're having bad results again. And of course, I'm not saying Ruben Amorim will fail. Of course, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm trying to highlight here is maybe people need to think that there are some deep-seated issues at Manchester United. It's more than just the manager. You've got a structural problem where the club has been mismanaged for over a decade. You've got debt, the stadium is falling apart, the infrastructure is not in the right place. Even Ronaldo in his interview saying that nothing's changed in the decade where he wasn't at United. You've got the issue that for many, many years, your recruitment policy has been flawed. You've been paying way too much for players like Casemiro and for Anthony and for Sancho and for Mount, overpaying these ridiculous fees and giving them huge contracts like 350k a week for Casemiro, who now performs like a completely average player, probably sub-average player. You're paying a Mohamed Salah wage to an average, sub-average player now. You've got Marcus Rashford on 300k a week, and he's not really performing either. He's not scoring many goals. He's not being a proper pressing, attacking, creative player. Not really, no. You've got Christian Eriksen on a very high wage. Maguire, a lot of players on very high wages, a huge wage bill. And you've spent more than 600 million under Ten Hag. You've brought all these players, and the recruitment just doesn't seem to be on point. And this summer was better. I think De Ligt was a better signing. I think that Lenny Yoro is a good signing for the future. Joshua Zirkzee needs more time. And obviously Mazraoui was a very decent signing. So maybe this summer has been an improvement, but Ineos are not some magic fix, right? We just got the news that Dan Ashworth has left the club. So look, Ineos will not get it right the first time. Ineos are not perfect. They haven't got a brilliant track record at football. Look at what they've done to Nice. It's not like they made Nice League on champions. So do not forget that despite all the hype around Ineos, around Sir Jim Ratcliffe, of course there will be, you've got this new guy coming in, and anything better than the Glazers seems to be phenomenal. But Ineos do not have an excellent track record in football. So don't expect them to work miracles in 1 year and transform the club. This will take a long time to sort out. The transfers need time. You need to keep clearing out the players, move them on. And you've got to sort out, of course, those new signings who are underperforming, like Anthony and Mason Mount, even Onana to some degree. You've got to figure out what to do. Do you move them on and just take the loss? How do you move them on? How do you find the right buyer for them? Because I struggle to see who would be willing to buy someone like Anthony. You paid, what was it, 88 million pounds, or it was like 100 million euros. You paid this huge fee, and I think that probably, how much will you get for him? Maybe 20 million pounds. So you're taking a massive loss there. Mason Mount you bought for 55 million pounds, I believe. He's barely played football. Maybe he suits the team, but he's not really performing either. And Onana, you spent more than 50 million pounds on a keeper who now missed a ridiculous goal, absolutely ridiculous goal. Of course, we can't just blame Onana. He's actually having a decent season. So, look, the issues at Manchester United are complex. I've done quite a few episodes on Manchester United where I've analysed the issues there. And I keep saying, I agree with Mark Goldbridge. You can't keep blaming the manager. Ten Hag had to go. He had to go because the team was giving up on him. And maybe one of the reasons why he failed in his third year was because he was kind of undermined by Ineos when they essentially made it very clear that they wanted to replace him. And then they didn't replace him, but everyone knew that they wanted to replace him. So he kind of stayed on, but deep down everyone knows that he was going to be replaced. So it was more like they had to keep him because there were no other options. But they've now got Amaran in. It will take time. Manchester United fans, if you're listening, have patience. You're going to have to wait. You're going to have to wait, and you can't blame individual players. You can't just be like, it's his fault, it's his fault. Equally, you can't blame the manager. This will take time. It's a long process. And talking about the game in particular, Nottingham Forest had 3 shots on target and got 3 goals with only 28% possession. United are now in a ridiculous and rather shambolic 13th place. 8 points off 4th place City. So it is a disaster. It is an absolute disaster for Manchester United. Things are getting worse and worse. 2 Premier League defeats in a row for them. I mean, honestly, I don't know where they go next. I mean, what are their next games? They've got Victoria Pleasant in the Europa League. They've got Man City in the league next, away as well. They've got Spurs in the Cup. Then they've got Bournemouth, Wolves, Newcastle and Liverpool. I'm telling you, I look at those fixtures. Those are some tough fixtures. Very, very tough. Tough away games. Liverpool away, 5th of January will be a massive challenge for them. And as I said, you got to give Amaran the time and patience. I mean, look, I'm not saying Ten Hag should have stayed, but I'm just saying that to the people who thought he was the issue, to the naive fans who thought he was the biggest problem, well, look, you've got rid of Ten Hag. Here is your result for now. Let's see how things go, but I don't expect Manchester United to suddenly turn things around and win all those games. If anything, I expect Man United to have more defeats in the coming weeks. I expect them to further underperform. In these big games, I don't see many wins. I see them losing against City, losing against Liverpool, maybe losing against Spurs, potentially losing against Newcastle. Of course, it might not all happen, but I'm just saying that these are all very tough fixtures for United. Very, very tough fixtures, which I don't expect them to... I mean, if they're losing to Forest at home, I don't think they'll be able to beat Newcastle and Spurs and Liverpool and City. So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why, in terms of fans, a lot of fans who haven't got that much experience, a lot of fans who aren't maybe perhaps as knowledgeable, it's always easy to blame the manager and to single out a single problem. Erik ten Hag, he's the issue. But if you really look at it more analytically like Mark Goldbridge does, you do see that there's a deeper issue in play. So yeah, with Manchester United, it will be a tough time for them. So of course, look, it was a very interesting week of Premier League action. I am very glad that this league is becoming competitive again. It's fantastic to see that City have dropped off. No one wants to see 5 in a row. And I'm not saying this from any biased perspective, right? If Liverpool won 4 in a row, 6 and 7, I'm sure people would have liked to see someone else win. And of course, the fact that City are underperforming is great. We don't want to see dominance. We don't want to see one team dominating everybody else. And it's great that Liverpool are up ahead. It's also fantastic how close all the teams are, all the way from 13th up all the way up to 5th. We've got only a 6-point gap. So there's a lot of things that can change, right? Things can massively change. Teams could, someone like Fulham could, with a couple wins, could be in the top 6. So wow, it's all I can say. This league looks amazing. And our relegation battle, Wolves, as of time recording, are yet to play. Ipswich and Southampton are in the bottom, but Leicester are 5 points clear. So look, not all the championship teams are going down. City aren't dominating again. The top 4 is all mixed up in the sense that you've got Chelsea joining the picture. And who would have expected Chelsea? Spurs, Newcastle, United, all underperforming. Forest, Fulham, Brentford, Brighton, Bournemouth, all in the top 10. Forest in 5th, 2 points away from City. What a league this is. Thanks so much for listening. Once again, please do like and subscribe to the YouTube video. Please follow the channel Tima Baller, much appreciated. And make sure to check out my other videos and shorts on the YouTube channel. I wish you all the best and have a great time. See you at the next one.